Hey guys, Curtis with Wander with the Workmans, and the end of February marks our first 6 months on the road. So I thought we'd take a look back at some of the campsites we visited that were memorable to us, and one campsite that's memorable for all the wrong reasons. So we hit the road at the end of August, start of September. I mean, it's a day or two on either side when you do the math. And so we're coming up on 6 months on the road. And I wanted to share with you some of the memories that we've created. Now, with that being said, please keep in mind this is not necessarily a campsite review video. If you want to know what we thought of these campsites or you want to get directions to these campsites, I'll leave links to our Campendium reviews down below. Also, this was one of those things where we hadn't really committed to doing the YouTube channel just yet when we visited some of these campsites. So I apologize now, but we're kind of shy on video and pictures of these campsites. But again, check out those Campendium reviews, and a lot of pictures are available there, so you get kind of an idea of what we were seeing. So with that in mind, let's talk about the memories we've created. And the first park that comes to mind is Clayton Lake State Park in New Mexico. Now, we came to this park as part of our use of our annual pass of the New Mexico State Park System. And again, if you'd like to know more about that pass system, we made a video about that, link in the description below. But for us, the reason Clayton Lake stands out in our mind is actually two reasons. First of all, Clayton Lake has a unique feature, and that is fossilized dinosaur tracks, and they have a nice little interpretive area that walks you through what types of dinosaurs made the tracks, how they became fossilized in that area, and just help you understand them, and it's just neat to see. So that's the first reason. But for us personally, the reason that Clayton Lake State Park stands out in our mind, I can talk today, I promise, is it was the first time we encountered snow. Now, we jumped into this lifestyle with one really big plus in our minds, and that was we can avoid cold temperatures. And then here we are stuck in the snow. And now it didn't help that we actually got there late and set up in the dark, which is one of those things that you want to avoid if at all possible. But we woke up the next morning and there was white stuff on the ground, and like, we got out of Idaho to avoid this kind of stuff. But it is a higher elevation campsite, and it was bound to happen. So that was the first time we encountered snow in the RV. Next up, we have Tolby Campground, which is in Cimarron State Park, which is in New Mexico as well. Now, Cimarron State Park unto itself is kind of a neat experience because it's very near Angel Fire, New Mexico, which is home to Eagle's Nest Reservoir State Park. And when you drive into that area, it is a flat depression that collects water. And so you're kind of, scenery-wise, it's not the most inspiring state park, but you go 7 miles up the road, and you end up in this very steep-sided canyon. And there is this little campground called Tolby Campground. And you go from kind of flat, high desert views to alpine canyon views. There were aspen trees everywhere, and we got there just as fall was starting to set in, so the leaves were changing color, and it was just absolutely beautiful. There was a babbling brook where I got to fish for trout, and it was just fun to fall asleep with that sound in the background. But here's the reason that Tolby sticks out for us. We were passing through another small New Mexico town and stopped at a cafe. And somewhere along the lines, we started talking to a couple that was sitting at a table next to us. And they said, if you're going that direction, don't stop at Eagle's Nest. Don't go up to the main campgrounds. Find Tolby Campground. You want to stay there. And this is a memory for us because this was the first time we kind of experienced that outgoing, friendly nature of just people across the country. We'd only been on the roads for a couple of months, and so we really hadn't interacted with a lot of people. But this was one of those moments where we really got to see that ultimate shining moment of traveling the country and getting to know people from all different walks of life and experiencing the friendliness of people all around us. And that's how we ended up in Tolby, and that's why it sticks out in our mind. Next up, we have Navajo Lake, again, another New Mexico State Park. And this one is memorable to us because this is where we bought our state parks pass for this in New Mexico. It's a great campground. It's a little bit tighter than you might expect if you're used to dispersed camping and that kind of thing, but it had all of the amenities, electric, dump sites, everything like that. Again, we got to meet quite a few neat people, and it has wonderful access to water and natural wonders. At one side of the dam you have Navajo Lake, and it is filled with pike and bass and kokanee salmon. It's a beautiful vista with nice cliffs, and it's just gorgeous. But if you go down below the dam, the other thing is that you then have the San Juan River. Now, for somebody who fly fishes, I like this place because it is kind of the Mecca, the Salt Lake City, the Vatican City of fly fishing. This is one of those pilgrimage sites for people who bass fish. But when you get out there and you see this river, it is crystal clear, and it is full of beautiful, healthy trout. There are all sorts of birds landing alongside the river, and it is just a great natural wonder to go experience the San Juan River and Navajo Lake. And so that's one of the reasons, apart from this is where our New Mexico adventure began, that Navajo Lake sticks out for us. Now we're going to leave New Mexico here for this next one. This is actually a Utah campsite. It is Buckhorn Draw. And during the daytime, it's just high desert. Low mesquite and sagebrush, but the vistas are vast. You can see for miles in any direction because the tallest thing out there is your camper. But this sticks out in our mind for two reasons as well. First of all, this was our first true boondocking campsite. We had stayed where water was relatively close. We had stayed where dump sites were relatively close. We had stayed in parks with electrical hookups and that kind of thing. But this was the first time we went and camped in a place where we were pretty much restricted to our tanks and to our batteries. And so it was a really good shakeout for our system. And in fact, it was pretty early in our trip, so it was good to get that experience. The other reason the Buckhorn Draw sticks out in our mind is once the sun goes down and you have clear skies, the view of the cosmos is stunning. The Milky Way cuts the sky in half. You can identify every single constellation viewable in the northern hemisphere and see shooting stars without a problem. If you are inclined at all to enjoying anything about involved with astronomy, this is a place for you. And it was just magical to see this nighttime sky in that way. Our other memorable campsite that's memorable for all the right reasons is a place called Oak Creek Campground. This is near Delta, Utah. And first of all, it's beautiful. It is Oak Creek Campground, and there's a reason it's named that, is because all of the trees there are oak trees, and there are acorns all over the place. It actually abuts a granite rock face, so it's absolutely stunning. We also got to see wonderful amounts of wildlife, lots and lots of songbirds and migratory birds, wild turkeys, deer. It was really neat in that respect, and the facilities are very nice as well. But what makes Oak Creek Campground stand out in our mind is this was a happy accident. We had finally gotten comfortable in our travels. We had left Idaho, traveled most of the height of Utah, and we were finally kind of settling into how the truck was pulling, how we got down the road, our systems that way, and we were chatting along and just kind of having a good time. And finally looked down and realized we had missed the turnoff for the campground that we had actually intended to go to. And by miss it, I mean by like 70 miles missed it. And so quickly pull out the Google machine and start looking for places, and we find this absolutely unreviewed national forest campground called Oak Creek. And thought, well, it's only like another 10 miles up the road, and that's better than backtracking 70 miles to a turnoff to go then another 100 miles to the campground we intended to go to. So we gave it a shot, and it had all the like cinematic build up. We get onto this side road, and it goes through a little small village kind of thing, and then you start winding your way up into the mountains, and the road starts to narrow down and the trees start to encroach, and I'm having these thoughts of like, this is turning into a one lane. What happens if I meet somebody coming the other direction? I'm gonna have to back this thing down. Did we miss a turn? I mean, just all of this buildup. And then finally you come around a bend, and there's this huge sign that says Oak Creek Creek Campground, National Forest Service. And then even at that moment, it's still a little nerve-wracking because the turn in, you go across another wonderful mountain stream, but the bridge is narrow and the turn is tight. We made it at 25 feet in our trailer and a full-size truck, but it did raise an eyebrow or two for a second. Once you go across this bridge, it just opens up into this beautiful campground with the majestic mountains and the beautiful oak trees and the deer grazing on the other side of the campground. There was even a couple of friendly cows that found their way into the campground as well. And by friendly, I mean like house pet kind of friendly. But anyway, it just sticks out in our mind because it was the first, I guess, major navigational mistake that we made, and it turned out so well. And so it's a real happy memory for us. And that is Oak Creek Campground near Delta, Utah. Of all of the campsites on the list, this is my number one, and this is the one I advocate for. If you get a chance to get down in that part of Utah, check out Oak Creek Campground. So now let's slow down and let's talk about the one campsite that we've encountered that is memorable for all of the wrong reasons. This is 25 Road near Grand Junction, Colorado. 25 Road is a BLM dispersed campsite if you look it up on Google or Campendium or All Stays or something like that. The downside to this is, first of all, it is barren. It is on a plateau. Again, your camper is the tallest thing around there. And it's relatively inconvenient to town because of the lack of maintenance on the road. But the big issue with 25 Road is that locals use this area not as a campsite per se. They use it more as a gun range, a garbage dump, and an ATV course. In fact, when we were setting up, putting down the stabilizer jacks, and I hear this zing pretty close to us, a ricochet was going in the opposite direction. Now, we stayed there because it is basically the only free camping site that we could find near Grand Junction, Colorado, and we have friends in Grand Junction that we had committed to going and visiting. But if we go back, well, actually when we go back, because we still want to see our friends, we are going to spot for an actual campground, because 25 Road has nothing to offer in the way of views. It's not terribly convenient to town, and frankly, it's dirty and dangerous. So 25 Road near Grand Junction, Colorado, it sticks out in our minds for all of the wrong reasons. And there you have it, guys. 5 campsites that are memorable to Havilah and I for all the right reasons, and one that, well, we'll just leave it at that. If you guys have a memorable campsite that you'd like to tell us about, please leave those in the comments section below. If you haven't done all those YouTube-y things like subscribe, notification button, like, and share, please take a moment to do that. It helps us out and helps keep you connected with us. If you'd like to keep up with us on a more spontaneous basis, you can check us out on Instagram. We are Wander with the Workmans on Instagram as well. In the meantime, you guys, keep making those memories, and we'll catch you down the road.